Welcome to Wealthy Mind, where we talk about all things finances, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the surprising. Hello and welcome to Wealthy Mind. I am your host, Misty Rose Gold, International Success Coach. And here at Wealthy Mind, we love to help you create and maintain a wealthy mind. Today, we have a special guest with us. His name is John. I'll let him give you his full name, what he does. He has some really cool stories to share with us today, like super cool. So, hi, John.
Hey, hi, Misty. How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you today?
I'm fine. Out here in Washington State, it's balmy compared to what's going on the East Coast or whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not really winter. We haven't had a winter here. It's been rainy and misty and kind of miserable, but no snow and ice.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you have decent weather right now, which is great. Uh, John, would you please give the audience your full name and what do you do?
My name is John Graham. I was about to go into the opening line of a short form video I do twice a week, which is, my name is John Graham. I'm the Bad Ass Granddad. You didn't know you had. I love doing them. They're 3 minutes long, and it's gotten really popular. We got like 100,000 followers now. Anyway, to answer your question, I
Mhm.
right now my day job is I'm the executive director of the Giraffe Heroes Project. Nothing to do with animals. It's a global movement started not by me, I'm not smart enough, but started by my wife, Ann Medlock, way back in 1982. And she was fed up with the fact that all the news of the day, she was living in New York City at the time, was negative. All the stuff going wrong in the world. And no one ever heard about the heroes. She knew there were people doing good stuff in the world, but no one ever heard about them. So she set up an alternative news service to rival CBS and NBC from her apartment in Central Park West. And she would find people who were sticking their necks out, hence the metaphor, giraffe neck, high. Got it? Yeah, right.
Yep,
Uh,
yep.
she would find people who were sticking their necks out. She called them giraffe heroes, and she would interview them and get their stories. And then, being New York, she would get stars of stage and screen to do the voiceover and introductions and stuff and prepare short audio messages and put them on vinyl. Now, there are maybe a few of your listeners who remember what a vinyl record is. It's a flat disc. It goes round and round and round. Sound comes out. Anyway, so she would create these 3 to 5 minute stories of somebody sticking their neck out to make their world a better place. Now, what could they were active in all kinds of stuff. They were active in fighting pollution or crimes against women or corruption. There were whistleblowers. There are all kinds of people that she found sticking their necks out, and she got their stories told. In the beginning, these records went out to small radio stations, but then the whole thing caught on. And within a few years, there was a page on her work in the New York Times, and it was off and running from then. Early on, I joined her just to help her out because she was nice and idealistic and stuff. And then I fell madly in love with her, and we have been marital partners and business partners with the Giraffe Project for the last 44 years. So
Wow.
anyway, we've now found and honored like 2,000 of these giraffe heroes. You might ask, and let me just, if you didn't, I'm going to shove it in here, why we do this. And Anne's motive way back when, 44 years ago, was was not new. People have been telling stories, cultures have been telling stories since cavemen, I guess, dancing around their fires.
Mm-hmm.
If you want people in your culture to be brave, to start solving public problems, you don't preach at them to do that. You give them examples, you give them role models. People have known that
Mm,
for millennia.
mm,
And think of the troubadours in the Middle Ages. Well, Anne decided she would become the troubadour of our times. And that's exactly what she's done with the Giraffe Heroes Project. We tell these stories, of course, no longer on vinyl disc. We're almost entirely on social media now. But in the beginning, we were telling them on fax machines and paper PR releases, and that
mm,
back in the day before the internet. So anyway, we tell these stories on the internet, and it works. I mean, people hear these stories, and they get up off their couch and they say something like, "Well, hell, I got this problem staring me in the face. I got some crime going on in my company, or I got this relationship that's falling apart, or I'm really sick to death with global warming and whatever.
mm.
And I'm not doing a thing about it, so I'm going to do something about it because I've just been inspired by someone just like me that I heard on this broadcast. And if they can do it, I can do it. So
Mm.
it's a very simple strategy, but it works.
I like simple and I like the power behind it. And I really, really like sticking your neck out because one of my favorite things to do is just go do it. If my inner being is leading me to go do something or asking me to go do something, I just go do it. And it's all in the name of making the world a better place for everybody else. So I really like sticking my neck out in my own way. Uh, but
I
I
get that,
do,
by the way, from everything I've read about you. So that's kind of why I'm here, because I'm
yeah.
attracted. Obviously, we're workers in the same vineyard here, so to speak. Yeah,
Mhm. Definitely. So I do know that you have a lot of cool stories of you sticking your neck out and facing fear and telling it to go bugger off. So
I do.
um, I want to start with something I recently learned about you, which is you were put on a no-fly list. Like,
Oh yes, yes, yes. It was a big deal. I mean, we all remember 9/11, right?
yeah.
After 9/11, then President George Bush and the Congress passed a bunch of laws trying to protect our security, so 9/11 would never happen again. So there were all kinds of things, and some of them threatened civil liberties because people were scared and didn't quite know what they were doing. So they passed an act that included something called the no-fly list, and they were looking for people who they deemed, now I guess Donald Trump would call us terrorists. They deemed a threat to national security, and they would, if they couldn't arrest them, they would at least keep them from flying, so to keep tabs on them. So they developed this no-fly list of
Hmm.
bad dudes whom they deemed were a threat to American national security. I got put on that list in 2008, I think. It's not clear entirely why. There were several things going on. One of which was that had been very active in the Middle Eastern peace movement. I was a diplomat for 15 years and
Mm.
had a lot of history of negotiation. So I was working with both Palestinians and Israelis in sometimes secret talks, some of which led to the Oslo Accords, for example. So I was active in peacemaking in the Middle East, but I was smart enough to know that if you want to solve a crisis, you can't just talk to one side. You have to talk to both sides. And
Mm.
I pretty well knew the Israeli stories, and I didn't think I knew the other side very well. So I went to the Middle East and I met with leaders of Hamas in a refugee camp in South Lebanon, just over the border. Um, and of course, Hamas are the people that created that massacre a couple of years ago, and are now, well, we all know it's happening in Gaza. Anyway,
Mm.
so I met with the Hamas leaders, and boy, did they fill my ears full of their side of the story, of how their grandparents were kicked out of their houses in 1947, 1948, and how they lived life as second and third class citizens ever since, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was important. So I got on a plane out of Beirut, and the plane stops in Paris on the way back home.
Hmm.
And the French Sûreté, the French secret police, called me off from the lobby and take me down to a small windowless room in the basement of the airport. And they started grilling me about what the hell was I doing talking to Hamas leaders because, there are spies everywhere. And
Mm.
I had been tracked all the way to this meeting and back. I wasn't surprised. I didn't really care. But so they finally let me go. And I thought maybe that was the end of it. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, I'm trying to board a plane to go down to California to see my two little granddaughters, and I'm stopped at the airport, and this guy, some kind of federal official, hands me a formal letter that says I've been put on the no-fly list, and it says that the reason is that I have been deemed by somebody to be a threat to national security and civil aviation. And I say, well, who? And they wouldn't tell me who. And they didn't tell
Mm.
me. And I said, why? And they wouldn't tell me why.
Mm.
But I put pieces together, and I think it began because of that trip to talk to Hamas. I'd
Mm.
also just published a book called Stick Your Neck Out, which is all about coaching people to be political activists, all from quiet stuff like forming teams to rowdy stuff like street demonstrations, all the stuff you needed to do to raise hell to try to solve the problem. And I'd written a book about that. And then, of course, I was then involved with the Giraffe Heroes Project, and those that want things not to change don't like the Giraffe Heroes Project because we're all about finding people who are nothing but change and making him
Mm.
as famous as we can. So at least those three things went into me being on the no-fly list. It was
Jeez.
it was crazy. For a while, it was really tough because I never knew whether they'd let me on the plane or not. They would always pull me aside and grill me, and then most of the time they would let me, or just about all the time, they would finally let me board the plane just as the gates were closing. But I got to tell one story.
Okay, please, please.
I'm flying to London, right? So I go up to the British Airways counter and present all my stuff to the agent at the British Airways counter at Seattle Airport. And sure enough, there's an asterisk by my name because that's what the no-fly list does. There's an asterisk by my name. So she says, "Oh, Mr. Graham, I see that you've become a friend of George Bush." She was being sarcastic, of course. And she said, "You're on the no-fly list. I think what we're going to do is put you into first class and have a wonderful flight to to London. And by the way," and she does the British equivalent of the finger, which is in Britain it's two fingers, right?
Oh, okay.
This is a family station, but anyway, it's a big FU, right? She says FU George Bush and puts me on first class.
Well, this isn't a family station, so you can cuss here.
Anyway, the no-fly list finally sort of petered out of its own weight. I mean, they put 2-year-old babies on it and movie stars. It was just crazy. But for a while there, it was a real headache for me. That's
Hmm.
the no-fly list. A long answer to your question, but it was
Uh, I
fun about
like
that.
it. Usually I don't like long answers, but I really like that long answer because it's a great story and you actually lived it. It's like, who else do we know that has been put on a no-fly list? But I want to back up because you went and talked to terrorists, essentially.
Well, they were deemed terrorists by the Western governments at that time, and of course,
Yeah.
the Israelis thought they were terrorists, and I suppose they were, because those were the days when Palestinians were strapping bombs around themselves and blowing themselves up in Israeli bus stations and stuff. So, yeah,
Mm.
okay. But at the same time,
Well,
I know we haven't got a lot of time here, but at the
there's a
same time,
point. There's a point there. So continue, and then I
there
would
is
love
definitely is a point.
to.
But the other side of the point is that Hamas also was in almost entirely all of the social welfare stuff going on in the refugee camps. They operated social welfare centers, hospitals, schools, and they administered most of Gaza. So it wasn't that they were nothing but a gang of thugs. They administered all the social welfare services, educational services
Mm.
in that part of Palestine. So they were complicated. Let's put it that way. They were complicated.
Understood. Understood. And there's two sides to every story, and I believe in that. But, people deem them terrorists, and
Yeah,
here you are
yeah.
on a plane to go meet with them. So the point that I want to pull from that is the bravery and the courage for you to put yourself essentially in harm's way to get a story, which, in my opinion, takes a lot of cojones.
Well, yes, but I wasn't a journalist, so it wasn't just me getting above the fold story in the New York Times. I was
Mhm.
deeply involved in peacemaking efforts. Like I said, I played a small role in the Oslo Accords, which damn near succeeded 20 years ago in creating a two-state solution in Palestine. And so my whole aim was basically truth and justice. There were clearly ways to solve the problem in the Middle East, and they all centered around a two-state solution. The Israelis have their part of it, the Palestinians have theirs, and there's a peacekeeping force in the middle or whatever. There were
Mhm.
definitely ways, but there were strong forces tearing them apart. And as we all know, those strong forces basically succeeded. And
Mm.
now, of course, everybody knows there's a terrible situation in Israel-Palestine.
Mm. So I'm learning something about you, a message to the audience, which is you have to be like John and raise a little hell to create peace.
Yes, that's true. I've raised a lot of hell. I mean, that's why the title of my
Mm.
first book on the subject is "Stick Your Neck Out." You stick your
Mhm.
neck out, for sure you're going to piss somebody off,
Mhm.
but that's necessary a lot of times.
Yes.
I want to make very clear here that I'm not just a rabble rouser. If you read all my books, you'll see that a core theme of all of my teaching is the necessity for trust building. You have to learn to build trust. Sometimes you can't do it, but a lot of times you can. And I urge people to seek that first, especially if they're involved in local crises. Let's say your local school board has banned books or something and you don't like it, so you go to a school board meeting. Well, instead of just standing up and hurling epithets at the other side, you try and find some common ground. Education of your kids, for example, something. Like
Mm.
I say, you can't always do it, but I spent a lot of time teaching people different ways of building trust. And the bottom line is start small. Start small. Start by doing little things, especially if your opponents seem to be intractable. You don't just go up to them nose to nose and say, "God damn it, how can you be so stupid as to?" No, you find some common ground. Um, and there's always some common ground, especially for local things. I mean, the people that you may be shouting at in that school board meeting, you pass in the vegetable counter of a local supermarket, right? So you're bumping into opportunities for building trust all the time. So it's important, and I have a lot of guidance for how to do that. I'm not naive. Believe me, Misty, I am not naive. If you're in trouble,
Oh, definitely
if you're
not.
if you're in trouble, you want me in your foxhole. But I have learned from experience that it makes sense to start by building trust. If it doesn't work, well, you lose a few steps. But if it does work, you may have avoided a whole lot of mayhem and long-term
Mm.
damage.
Mm. Yeah, I really like building trust, and it doesn't matter where we are in life or what we do in life. Building trust is important. And like you said, it's little steps. Little steps, little steps, little trust building activities, exercises that build over time. And maybe you're able to build a strong relationship of trust, maybe not, but that's where it starts. It's the little things. So I really love that and I agree with that. So you said something about being a badass grandpa. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a long story, and I'm not going to tell it. But basically, I have a grandson who's a journalist, and he wrote a story about some of my mountaineering exploits. And in that story, he called me a real badass granddad, and I picked it up. I picked it up. So,
Oh, nice. John
and
just,
he,
for those of you listening, John just showed me a coin that says badass on it.
And so, and I also discovered that that's an extremely interesting and evocative way to get an audience, especially of young people. So my episodes on Bad Ass Granddad, none of them are longer than 3 minutes. In the first 2 minutes, I tell the story of one of my wild ass adventures, and as you noted earlier, I've had dozens of them.
Hmm.
And then I segue and start drawing a life lesson tied to that particular adventure. The
Mm.
life lesson could be about courage or perseverance or anything practically.
Mm.
Uh, and I then end with a call to action, telling people that it's really important to take risks because a life without risk is a life that's boring and ultimately inconsequential. And yeah, I use that word. I think a life without taking risks, maybe you agree, ultimately is inconsequential. You got to do something. Whoever looks back at you in the mirror in the morning, you want to know you're on the planet for a reason. Okay. Otherwise, it'd be like being a Swiss watch with no hands on it. So, yes, you have to take risks, but for God's sake, take smart ones and not stupid ones. So, I spent a
Mm.
good part of my life teaching people to take smart risks and avoid taking stupid ones as best they can.
Yes. So if we're not taking risks, we're not living. But if we're not taking risks, we're actually dying. So I like to pull it that way and help people understand that if you want to die quickly, stay stuck, stay still, don't do anything. It's the quickest death possible. But if you want to live a full life and if you want to live a long and prosperous life, God willing, take risks, evolve as a human being. We have to be in evolution in order to stay alive. It's alignment with creation. Like creation is always creating. It doesn't stop. And we're a part of creation. So if we're not in alignment with it, it's my belief that we're dying.
Oh, I think you're right, and I've read enough about you and your podcasting to really admire what you're doing, and I think you're absolutely right.
Mm.
Um, it's interesting for me. The risk taking was always easier. Physical risks were always the easiest ones to take. I know sometimes I feel alone in that, but it's true. First
It is
part,
true.
I mean, you talk about the risk. By the time I was 40 years old, I'd almost died a violent death dozen times, at least a dozen times. I mean, close, okay?
Hmm.
And that's what my life was about. It was either climbing big, dangerous mountains or being shot at or in wars and revolutions where the U.S. government was paying me to either start them or stop them, depending on what was going on. And so, it was all physical. And then there came a moment, in my case, it happened during a battle in Vietnam. But in any case, it happened. It happened. And I realized how shallow that life was and began to turn it around. And the rest of my life has been a different path since that battle in Vietnam and that realization that a life based just on physical risk, on anticipating the next rush of adrenaline, a life based just on that was extremely selfish, self-centered, and shallow. And I needed to do something better with my life. And I,
Mm.
thank God, did.
Mm. Wow. I'm not easy to impress, but thank you for the life that you've lived. Thank you for the wisdom that you've gained. Thank you for being a badass. Thank you for the fire that is in your soul and you're still sharing it with the world and you're in your 80s. Like,
Still, I mean, don't use that word still. Yeah, I'm 83 years old, and I intend to do this until I just can't do it anymore. I mean, why not? What else have I got to do? Now
exactly.
I'm reaching more people now than I did 20 years ago, thanks mostly to social media. Um, Before COVID, I spent a lot of time running around the world doing big platform speeches, but hell, at most I'd reach 5,000 people in a hotel ballroom or something. I can reach hundreds of thousands of people now on social media, and I do. So, like I say, I'm having the time of my life, and I think from the
Hmm.
feedback, I'm reaching a lot of people, so I'm happy to do it.
Hmm.
And by the
Oh,
way, I my will, you'll love this. In my will, it says, okay, when the time finally comes when I can't do this anymore, I got a terminal diagnosis or something, whatever. What I'm going to do is, and I don't want any of you to stop me. I'm going to put on a light jacket and drive up to Mount Rainier, not far from my house, and I'm going to start walking toward the summit of Mount Rainier. Of course, I'm going to freeze to death, and I'm going to fall into a crevasse, and that'll be the end of me. And that's how I want to go.
and more power to you. Go out the way you want to go.
That's
But
right.
you are an inspiration to me because I don't want to age like most people age. I I want to age like you're aging. I want to just be a badass in my own right until I'm no longer here. And I want to do that for decades to come. I'm 45 years old. I've got time. But most people that reach, 70, 80, they just kind of check out and they just like become a lump on a log, watch TV, fade away into nothing. And here you are, just as feisty as you were at 40 years old. And I love it. So thank you for being an inspiration.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for living your own life. I can see no one's going to stop you either. So, yeah, I mean, you're almost 40 years younger than I am, so you got a lot of space to grow in. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I was, I was headed in that direction. I grew up in Tacoma, Washington, a little city where nothing ever happens, in a community where nothing ever happens, in a family where nothing ever happens. And I was expected to graduate from a local high school, go to the University of Washington, marry the girl next door, settle down as a local lawyer or business person or something, have a couple kids, and then die. I mean, that's what people in Tacoma, Washington were doing. Ah, something absolutely magnificent happened, and it was the start of everything. I'm just going to entice your listeners and readers well, as what happened. I
Mhm.
won't tell the whole story, but I got a job on a freighter in 1959. Now, freighters then weren't container ships. They were big cargo ships run by 50 or 60 really tough guys with muscles and tattoos. I got a job as a seaman. And here I am, this little kid, badly bullied in high school, skinny. It was a terrible, terrible adolescence, but I'm on the ship all of a sudden. And these guys, the seamen took one look at me and said, "Oh man, that kid, well, we're going to teach him some life lessons this summer that he'll never get in Tacoma, Washington." Now, whether this is a family station or not, I'm not going to be explicit about what those lessons were, but you can guess. Uh, so there I am on this ship, and all of a sudden, there's a wide world out there. I mean, I'm
Mm.
out there. I'm out there with it's Terry and the pirates for this whole summer, and it's colorful and it's violent and it's amazing. And I come back a totally changed person. I don't want anything to do with Tacoma. I don't want anything to do with the way my life path was headed. I wanted something more. I wanted an adventure. And sure enough, I started then. I mean, the next 2 summers later, I found myself hitchhiking in Algeria because there was a war going on, a colonial war between the rebels and the French government. I'd never been in a shooting war before, and that seemed like a really cool thing to do. So at
Mhm.
least I was smart enough to put an American flag on my chest so that the rebels wouldn't kill me as a Frenchman. But I hitchhiked right through a revolution. And I was young and dumb, right? I was like, oh, how old was I? 20 years old or something like that. And I kept doing it. And there were some mountain climbing exploits that are famous enough to be in books that were wildly dangerous. And I just walked through it all. I kept surviving all these things so that, like I said, by the time I was 40, there were at least a dozen close calls with a violent death. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Mm.
I was
Mm.
also really good at it because by then I'd put on 30, 40 pounds of muscle. I'm 6.5 feet tall. Nobody messed with me.
Mhm.
Um, so I had a life until that battle in Vietnam demonstrated to me deeply in my soul how shallow that life was, how selfish it was.
Mm.
It was a hell of a life.
Oh, yes. And I believe that everything that we've experienced through our lives is there for a reason. Maybe not the best things that we've done or whatever. Maybe it was just a phase of our lives and we need to shift into a new phase as we move into different decades. I don't like to say age, but as we move into different decades, right? So,
Well, yeah, I'll just
uh,
say this.
well, before you
I know you,
do,
I don't want to add one sentence. I didn't
okay.
stop taking risks. I did not stop taking risks. They just stopped being wildly violent and physical.
Mm.
The risks I then began to take were more risk of the spirit. At the United Nations, for example, I helped end apartheid by taking huge bureaucratic risks um, and stuff like that. I was
Mhm.
taking risks, and they were risks that were even more severe than hanging by a rope from a mountainside. Uh, but I'm still a risk taker. It's in my
Yeah.
blood. It's in my blood. Sorry to
Definitely.
interrupt you, but I didn't want anyone to think that I suddenly became a patsy. Oh
Oh
no.
no. No, no. That's not what I want the audience to believe. You're still a risk taker. Like that didn't change. It's just the way that you took the risk changed. Um, for the audience listening, John is a fascinating man, and we're definitely going to have him back to share more of his stories with you guys, just because he's fun to listen to. So stay tuned. More episodes will come. Oh my gosh, John. What are your parting words for the audience today?
Well, it's something we can explore in a later podcast, but in the middle of all of this stuff is one key question, and that is, what is the meaning of my life? And risk-taking and courage and service and making a difference all flow from that. Find the true meaning of your life. Hint, it doesn't come from money and power.
I love that question, and that is a mic drop question, so we're going to leave it there. John, if people want to reach you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Well, I invite emails. I'm Graham, Graham, at giraffe, GIRAFFE.org. You'd be surprised, Misty, how many people can't spell giraffe. It's got two F's in it.
I'm one
Uh,
of them. I'm like, I have to look at the spelling of giraffe. It's just one of those words that never
all
computed.
right. Okay. All right. And the Giraffe Project, which we barely mentioned, but which is huge, is its URL is giraffe dot org,
Mm,
giraffe.org. My own website, johngraham.org.
mm, yeah. Well, you have many ways that we can all get a hold of you, and I'm sure people are going to reach out because if they have a speaking platform, you need to be on it. So,
Well, let me just say also, Bad Ass Granddad is on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. You can't avoid it. Dial in the search box at any one of those three channels. I've put up 60 or 65 episodes so far, and I'm loving it. And they're easy to reach, and they're just 3 minutes. I urge your listeners to listen to one.
the way you said that reminded me of how I say, like, uh, I have two mastermind groups, and with one of them, I tell people it's the low, low price of $500 a month. It sounds like we're on a game show, so it just reminded me of that. Oh my gosh, you guys. I know you love John as much as I do. His stories are incredible. If you are not inspired, you are freaking dead. And I'm going to leave it there. We will see you guys next time. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Wealthy Mind podcast. Please be sure to download the Wealthy Mind app today and make sure to support your local Dress for Success.